Welcome to Miss Rowe Classroom. Today we'll be discussing the play The Proposal by Anton Chekhov. Please leave a like, subscribe and share the video. The Proposal is a one-act farce by Anton Chekhov that mocks the behavior of wealthy Russian landowners. The plot follows Ivan Lomov, a nervous neighbor who visits Chubakov's house to propose to his daughter Natalia. Instead of discussing marriage, Lomov and Natalia quarrel repeatedly over unimportant issues such as oxen meadows and whose hunting dog is better. Their arguments grow loud and absurd, even causing Lomov to collapse. When they finally become engaged, they immediately start fighting again. Through humor and exaggerated conflict, the play highlights materialism, petty pride, and the foolish nature of human relationships. Before we start with the play, let's know what a farce is. A farce is a type of comedy that uses exaggeration, silly or absurd situations, ridiculous behavior, arguments, and quick misunderstandings. In The Proposal, all three characters, Lomov, Chubakov, and Natalia, are quick-tempered and constantly quarrelsome. They argue over unimportant or trivial matters such as land ownership and their dogs, completely forgetting the real purpose of Lomov's visit. Their shouting, dramatic overreactions, and even Lomov's fainting contribute to the humor. In the end, they agree to the marriage not out of affection but for economic advantage, making The Proposal a classic example of farce. The play opens in Stefan Chubakov's household. Ivan Lomov, a wealthy but extremely nervous neighbor, arrives in formal dress, a dress jacket and gloves. Chubakov welcomes him warmly, assuming he has come for a friendly chat. Lomov behaves stiffly, with visible physical discomfort, palpitations, numbness, and trembling, characteristic of his hypochondria. Chubakov misreads the situation and fears Lomov wants to borrow money. After great hesitation, Lomov reveals his purpose. He has come to propose marriage to Chubakov's 25-year-old daughter, Natalia Stefanova. Chubakov is overjoyed, calling it his dream, and rushes to fetch Natalia. Alone on stage, Lomov explains his practical reasoning. He is already 35 and fears worsening health. He believes marriage will stabilize his life and unite the estates. Lomov's proposal is more practical than romantic, showing the social realities of arranged marriages at that time. Natalia enters the household in household clothing, unaware of the proposal. She and Lomov begin with harmless topics: weather, haymaking, and his formal clothes. Lomov prepares to express his proposal, but the conversation unexpectedly derails. Lomov mentions "my oxen meadows," triggering Natalia's instant objection. She insists the meadows belong to her family, not his. The discussion escalates as Lomov argues using old legal documents. Natalia counters with a long-held family tradition. Both become stubborn, emotional, and competitive, a comic reflection of petty landowner pride. Their voices rise, neither listens, and tension peaks. Chubakov enters and immediately supports Natalia. The quarrel turns into a three-way shouting match, filled with accusations and insults. Family honor becomes the center of the fight. Lomov, overwhelmed and sweating, suffers more heart palpitations and trembling fits. Finally, he storms out, threatening legal action. After Lomov leaves, Chubukov casually reveals the truth. Lomov had come to propose to her. Natalia is shocked and devastated, bursting into tears. She immediately orders her father to bring Lomov back, panicking at the lost opportunity for marriage. Here I'm adding a note: Natalia does not truly love Lomov. She shows no romantic affection and spends most of the play quarreling with him. She becomes eager to marry him only after learning of the proposal, showing practicality rather than emotion. Her reaction reflects social and economic motives, not love. Chubukov drags a breathless, weak Lomov back inside. Natalia instantly shifts her stance and agrees that the meadows belong to Lomov. She apologizes and tries to soothe him, though Lomov continues arguing on principle. Their sudden politeness creates a comic contrast to the intense fight just moments before. Natalia attempts to change the topic to something safe: Lomov's hunting dog, Guess. Lomov casually mentions planning to hunt after the harvest. To make conversation, he tells Natalia that his dog Guess has become lame, a serious issue for a landowner and hunter in those days. Natalia shows polite concern and asks why. Lomov mentions that Guess is expensive and not very good after injuring his paw. Lomov proudly states he paid 125 rubles for Guess, believing it was a bargain for a first-rate dog. Natalia disagrees, saying it was too much. She then compares Guess to her family's dog Squeezer, which she claims is far superior, reigniting an old argument. This sets the stage for another quarrel, showing how easily they slip back into conflict. Lomov laughs at the idea that Squeezer could be better. Natalia argues on points and pedigree, saying Squeezer comes from superior hunting stock. Lomov counters that Squeezer is overshot, a flaw that makes a dog poor at catching prey. Natalia denies this completely. The discussion becomes emotional and childish. Natalia calls Guess ugly and old. Lomov says Squeezer is common and worth very little. Both accuse each other of contradicting everything out of sheer stubbornness. Lomov, who has been tense and anxious throughout the play, begins showing symptoms of stress: heart palpitations, breathlessness, and dizziness. Instead of stopping, Natalia becomes even more aggressive in defending Squeezer. Natalia brings her father as the final judge. Chubukov tries to calm the quarrel, takes his daughter's side. Soon, he too is arguing loudly with Lomov about the dog's past hunts and performances. All three begin recalling old grievances, making the argument personal and bitter. The discussion shifts from dogs to general insults: intriguer, boy, pup, old rat. Lomov becomes extremely distressed, complaining about his heart and numb limbs. The scene becomes chaotic and comical, showing the petty nature of all three characters. Lomov suddenly collapses into a chair, appearing lifeless. Natalia screams that he is dead. Chubukov overreacts dramatically, asking for a knife or pistol to end his misery. The atmosphere turns hysterical, though the audience recognizes the comedy behind the chaos. Lomov slowly regains consciousness. Seeing an opportunity to end the endless fights, Chubukov forces the proposal instantly. "She is willing, I give you my blessing." He physically joins their hands and instructs them to kiss. Lomov, confused but relieved, agrees. Natalia happily accepts the proposal, finally realizing that Lomov came to ask for her hand, not to fight. Lomov is elated, though still dizzy and weak from the argument. Within seconds of getting engaged, Natalia returns to the original topic. But still, you will admit that guess is worse than squeezer. Lomov stubbornly and repeatedly replies, "Better." And Natalia continues with worse, worse and worse. Chubukov shouts for champagne to stop the new argument. The play ends on a humorous note, as all three characters shout, argue and celebrate simultaneously. Even at the moment of their engagement, Lomov and Natalia resume quarreling, revealing the absurdity of their relationship. The ending reinforces Chekhov's central idea. Human beings often behave foolishly and argue over trivial matters, even at important occasions such as proposals and weddings. Now let's move to the theme of the play. First, marriage and materialism. The central theme of the proposal is indeed marriage as a materialistic, practical arrangement rather than an emotional bond. Chekhov exposes how upper-class families often treat marriage as a means to secure wealth, land, social status, and financial stability. In the play, Lomov, Chubukov, and Natalia constantly squabble over petty issues like oxen meadows and the superiority of dogs. Yet all three remain eager for the marriage to happen. Their willingness to ignore anger, insults, and repeated arguments show that property matters more than personal feelings. Chekhov uses humor, exaggerated quarrels, and irony to portray how pride and material motives overshadow affection. Despite their disagreements, the proposal is accepted because the marriage promises economic and social advantages. The play highlights the practical, transactional nature of marriage in wealthy families, where material gain is valued above emotional connection. Second, conflict over petty issues. Most of the play's humor and action comes from the characters arguing over small, meaningless matters. Again, oxen meadows, whose dog is better, who is a good neighbor, etc. These quarrels show Chekhov's satire on human behavior. Pride over logic, anger over understanding, ego over purpose. The petty fights directly interrupt the central theme of marriage or the proposal, highlighting the character's absurdity and exposing society's foolishness or hypocrisy. Third, comic satire on the upper-class Russian society. Chekhov mocks wealthy landowners, their obsession with property, their laziness, their fake politeness, their exaggerated pride. The play gently ridicules upper-class behavior through humor and exaggeration. To summarize the explanation, Anton Chekhov's The Proposal humorously exposes the petty quarrels and stubbornness of wealthy landowners. Through the characters of Lomov, Natalia, and Chubukov, Chekhov shows how trivial disputes over land and dogs can overshadow important events like a marriage proposal. The play highlights the practical, economic motivations behind arranged marriages in 19th century Russia, while the exaggerated arguments, fainting, and shouting create a comic effect. By turning serious matters into absurd situations, Chekhov entertains the audience and gently criticizes human folly, showing that even in matters of love and family, people often act foolishly and stubbornly. For more in-depth study of the play, visit our reference website mistroclassroom.com for exam-oriented summaries, extra questions, themes, character sketches, and extract-based questions for Class 10. In the next session, we'll analyze the play The Book That Saved the Earth by Claire Boyko. If you enjoyed the content, ask questions, subscribe, like, and share the video. Don't forget to hit the notification bell. Bye-bye.